Hello, we're going to be tuning in now to our first guide for this moon, the beautiful swallow. And I wanted to start with kind of setting the scene a little bit. I tend to work with plants and animals that are local to me. Not exclusively, but generally I do. And so I wanted to share with you a little bit about my experience of meeting beautiful swallows. They're a creature that I've always sort of been aware of, and they're deeply associated with summer. And we had this really beautiful experience last year. It was 2020. We couldn't do our usual solstice ritual for summer solstice, which was to go and watch the sunrise at Avebury. So we went a few days before to just go and explore what we could of the landscape. And it is one of my favourite places. It's so magical. It's a deeply sacred landscape that has a lot of mysterious, beautiful stone things. There's the remnants of a stone circle and an incredible long barrow. And there's also a hill that is completely been made by humans for some kind of ritual purpose, but no one's really sure quite what, which I love. I love a good mystery. So we had been walking around this beautiful landscape, and we did a little lap of the bottom of Silbury Hill, which is this incredibly high kind of mound. And as we walked back up to where our car was parked, we passed this tree. And we'd been seeing swallows all day. It's a very wide open landscape, and they swoop over us whenever we go there in summer. But we realised up in the tree where we were walking, there were 3 little fledgling swallows, and a parent was bringing them food back. And those parent birds were working so hard. And these little fledglings were doing that very characteristic thing of kind of the wide open beak and just like, feed me, feed me, feed me. So the tree would go quiet, and then as the parent bird came back, all these little cheepy beaks would start cheeping again, and one of them would get fed, and then the parent would go away again. And I just wanted to share that with you because it was a really beautiful, up-close moment that I had with swallows. They are a very fast bird, so a lot of the time all you see is and they're gone. So that was a moment where I actually got to see them a little bit closer. And I'm going to share some facts and some bits and bobs about their life cycles and some of the questions that they invite us to ponder by how they move through this time of year. So there are actually loads and loads of different species of swallows all over the world. The swallow, we just call it a swallow here. We have a subspecies of the barn swallow, which is the bird that we see here. But feel free to tune into a different species. If you have swallows near you, this is a great moment to go out and try and spot some and just watch them and see how you feel and any messages that come through when you're actually up close to them. And I'm going to share a bit about my local species, the barn swallow. So they are quite a small bird. They have a kind of dark blue upper body, and then I say they have rosy cheeks, but kind of this part and just above their beak is an orangey colour, and then they have a creamy buff kind of tummy. There's a few birds that look similar to them, but one of the key ways to spot them, because they move so fast, is that they have a kind of trying not to swear at you, they have a kind of forked tail with very long end tail points, what they call it, streamers, long tail streamers that are longer on the males than on the females and the young birds. So if you're seeing a bird with a very, very forked tail that's kind of around on a summer evening, there's a very good chance that it's a swallow. They are a migratory bird, so we are lucky enough to have them here in the spring and summer. They arrive March, April, depending on the weather, depending on all kinds of factors, and they do this incredible migration up north to us from and it's really interesting. Our particular species that we get here comes from South Africa and Namibia, but there are a number of different species that live in different parts of Africa and then travel to different parts of Europe, which is just fascinating. So they do this incredible pilgrimage up. Some of them cross the Sahara Desert, and some of them do a more coastal route, and then they arrive here, and they'll then go into breeding season when they're here. So they've been coming here since Anglo-Saxon times. So, you know, they're a big part of what summer is in the UK, how summer feels. There's an image that I have of kind of wide open farmland, which is one of their favourite habitats, with the crops going golden and the swallows sweeping over it, which is like a real kind of iconic image of summer for me. They create nests using mud, so they like to have some water nearby or some muddy spaces. And yeah, they're not really going to be a woodland bird, because they like big wide spaces. So we're going to start tuning in to what we can learn from them at this time of year. And it blows my mind that these small birds travel so far. And they're a really powerful reminder for me of how interconnected we are. The landscape of England in summer is going to be so different to the places that they travel over and the places where they spend their winter in South Africa and Namibia, and it just is incredible to me. And what's really interesting is that conservation-wise, they're generally thought to be doing okay. There have been some declines. They are hugely affected, you can imagine, by anything that disrupts their flight. So it could be if they don't find enough food, or if there are storms, or if humans have done anything to kind of interfere. So there will be, for generations, they would have been using the same overnight stops in between, quite often on marshes and things. And as we learn more about the routes, we can start to see where the little hotspots are for the swallows, and know that those are really precious areas that need conserving. So yeah, there's this kind of beautiful route that they're going up and down every year, and they go over us and around us and through our landscapes. And so we get to celebrate them, we get to conserve them, and hopefully help them make that journey, and just continue to make that journey for however many thousands of years. They can travel around 200 miles a day, which is an incredible amount for a small bird, isn't it? So we get an invitation here to think about our interconnectedness with other parts of the world through this bird. It's almost like stitching a little thread that connects the UK and South Africa and Namibia with this flight path of this little bird just going backwards and forwards between us and them, little stops along the way. And I just think that's so beautiful, because sometimes the world can feel really big, can't it? And we're all so diverse, and our languages, the food that we eat, our stories, you know, we're incredibly different. And we're all living on this same smallish planet that a bird can navigate a huge part of over a few weeks. So that, I think, is a really beautiful invitation from Swallow to think about the world, the planet, as well as the kind of themes of travel, whether that's physical travel or something more metaphorical or more internal. So there's this invitation there to think about that. They also have this attached to the reason they travel is linked to the seasons, and they will go so far to make the most of the seasons in those two places, to come up here to raise their young, to go back down again for our winter, as our temperature drops. So they're weighing up their options so beautifully to maximize the seasons and to move in this stunning way. They are also the most amazing flyers in terms of their maneuverability. So you've got kind of like these two aspects of them that I'm finding really interesting. There's a balance between long distance, long term routes, and the kind of, so they will quite often, a pair of swallows, if they both survive, will go back to the same nest that they nested in last year, and they will be following routes that their families have been following for generations, stopping off at the same places. So there's this kind of well-carved pathway, and in the moment you have this small, maneuverable, beautiful bird that catches insects on the wing. It's like a fighter jet. They're like, pew, 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 pew. They are fast and they are maneuverable. And so they've kind of got this balance between the two things, which I think can be a really interesting invitation to us as humans to ponder. Sometimes there are the well-trodden paths that are beautiful and precious to us, and it kind of preserves tradition maybe, or connection to family and ancestors. Sometimes those things are just patterns that we're following and we're not even thinking about it anymore, and maybe there might be a reason for us to stop. There might not be the best way anymore. And so there's that kind of side, and then there's this maneuverability comes in as well. So where could you maybe be a little more swallow? Either in repeating and honouring something that you feel really connected to, or switching it up, manoeuvring, doing a little sharp turn, turning really fast in a new direction. And I just think those are some really beautiful little things to ponder. I'm just going to go through their life cycle a bit and just fill you in a little bit more about them, because I just think they're really amazing. So they used to think in the UK, and I was just reading, Gilbert White was a naturalist who was like a proper old school. He was a vicar. He spent a lot of time thinking about and looking at nature in his local area, and he was calling them chimney swallows, which I thought was really interesting. So they're obviously looking for dark, cool places to nest. Well, they're looking for places that are dark so that they are cool when it's hot and they are warm when it's that bit colder, especially, English summer. You never really know what you're going to get. So they're being quite adaptable and trying to keep their nests as safe as possible, so that they might even have 2 to 3 broods in a year whilst they're here. So it's quite a quick turnover of laying the eggs in this beautiful little cup-shaped nest that they've made out of mud, and it'll be tucked kind of up high in someone's barn or a shed, maybe a chimney. And then you've got 4 or 5 eggs that get incubated, and then they hatch, and then they've got this kind of frantic feeding period where the chicks can't move and they're just in their nest, and they've got those very wide baby bird beaks that give the parents this kind of super signal, feed me, feed me. And the parent birds will just be coming back, and then the little chicks will fledge and go through a bit of a sort of sad looking scruffy phase, like a lot of fledgling birds, where they will be out of the nest but not looking that happy about it, and still relying on the parents for food, and the parents will be trying to teach them how to catch their own food. And hoping that happens quite soon, because they look quite harried, don't they, sometimes, those parent birds, sort of just constantly bringing another bug. So I love the parental energy of birds at this time of year, and we get to think about that in ourselves in all sorts of ways, because of course we can be parents in the same sense of having offspring, or you might have businesses or projects or plants or animals that you are caring for and tending to in a similar way, as well as us all having our own inner child that we're looking after and learning how to nurture. And particularly if you've had any kind of early trauma, childhood trauma or developmental trauma, we all have that, like, in a little chick that can get a bit needy sometimes. And so I love that kind of invitation here to ponder the best way to nurture our inner fledglings at this time of year, and to really like feed ourselves up on the abundance that's around us at the moment. For the swallows, it's all about the insects. For us, that can be about the energy, the light, the creativity of this time of year, and charging ourselves up as much as possible. Because what's incredible is those baby birds will do that migration. They will fly to Africa. Even though they've only hatched and fledged that summer, they will go. And kind of September time, you'll start to see the little swallows, another bird. You'll start to see the swallows sitting on the telegraph wires. That's quite an iconic thing. As autumn starts to be in the air, we see the birds lining up and getting ready to go. And it is incredible to me to think amongst them will be this year's babies, learning the roots, starting to get those instincts matched with the maps that their parents are going to teach them of this is where we go, and this is how we navigate, and this is what we do every year. So there's that beautiful balance over the summer between the kind of fledgling learning inner child energy, finding this deeper tenacity for survival and thrival, to get to the point where you go from being a vulnerable baby bird to doing this huge migration. I just love this invitation to ponder our relationship with how far we will go for the things that we want and need and love, and what we need to nourish us to be able to put in that effort. How do we fledge? How does that work? It's all part of the themes that we're working with over the summer in Taking Wing. And I then love the idea of these birds arriving in their other home and being an iconic part of a different sky. This is a really powerful guide that we're working with this moon. And in the pack that I created for you, there are some journal prompts specifically from Swallow, some themes and ideas that I've been talking about. I've sort of pulled those out a little bit more for you to have a ponder. And then there's also going to be a guided meditation for you below to specifically tune into Swallow and the messages that they have that are going to help you with anything that you're navigating or going through right now, and what your intentions are for the summer and for this moon. Swallow is going to give you some extra guidance and help and wisdom to help you really make the most of this summer.